Survey. Okay, with that, I'll introduce you now again to Dr. Cameron Brown, and as you heard me mention previously, she is retired 34 years from the Fort Worth Fire Department, as well as 6-year veteran of the United States Air Force. She's going to bring a focus towards families facing cancer through an engaging panel discussion, and Cameron has 3 couples of stage.
I think it would be best if you also share this back.
All right.
If that's not yours, I can take it.
No, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Katie. Good afternoon. And right now, I would like to welcome to the stage Josh and Shannon Palma. And they're welcome. We're so glad that you all have volunteered to do this, to talk a little bit about what your journey has been. So please go ahead and introduce yourselves. Shannon, let's start with you.
All right. So my name is Shannon Palma, wife, the Josh Palma. Yeah. Okay.
My name is Josh Palma. I'm a fire prevention officer with Flower Mound Fire Department.
Okay. And how long have you been a firefighter?
About 18 years.
About 18 years. Okay. All right. Other family members in the area?
No, not for me.
Not for you? Okay. All right. Because, one of the things that when people are diagnosed with cancer is that we want to look at what is that social support system.
Yeah.
And so can you all tell us a little bit about your story and starting with you, Shannon, I think that you have something to...
So our story started about a year before Josh's story, when I got diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and I had nodules for years and years. We did the fine needle biopsies, we did the ultrasounds for I think 4 years. It was annually, so I think it was December of every year we did it. Came back negative, but after I had my 2 children, I noticed that it was pushing on my vocal cords or whatever is back here. So my doctor and I decided to go ahead and have it removed, and I was done nursing my kids, and I said, okay, we can remove it. I remember him telling me in the surgery room, he was like, okay, we're going to remove it. You don't have cancer. We already did all the testing. So we'll come back in a year. He was like, I'll check on you tomorrow and then release, go home, see you in a year. Well, he called me 2 days later, and it was so bizarre because...
Here's the mic.
So it was really weird because I wasn't expecting that call at all. And then he told me, you have 2 types of thyroid cancer. One we know about, it's very common. People have it for 15 years and then they die of a heart attack. And then we realized that they have the thyroid cancer. And then the other type of thyroid cancer, they had only known about for a few years and they didn't really know how to treat it. So, they said, we don't really know what we need to do, but we know we need to remove the other half, because I had only had my right side removed at the first surgery. So he said, come back in 2 days and we'll have another surgery and spend a few more days in the hospital. At this time, our daughter Madison was like 3, and our son was about 6 months old. About 8 months old, actually. So 2 surgeries, and he said, okay, I have to consult with a lot of other endocrinologists and ENTs in the area and oncologists because we don't really know how to treat this second type. And then I had to do radioactive iodine, which is radiation, but it's a pill. They bring it in like this 20-pound lead jar in hazmat suits and pretty much hand it to me, say, open it, take it, and get out. And so I had to quarantine for like 2 weeks and be away from the kids, and that was tough, but that was fine. It was just surgeries and a pill, so it was pretty easy. Then a few months later, this joker, we noticed it was about 7, 8 months later,
About 10 months later.
he was changing and getting dressed, and I noticed on the back he had a bruise. And this was the type of bruise that, like, you would have to hit somebody with a baseball bat. It was like black, and I was like, how did you get that? And he was like, I don't know, I have no idea. And I was like, you would know where you got that bruise. And I was thinking, like, you were in a car accident or something, because that level of bruise you don't just get. So we moved on, and a few days later we were sitting on the couch just like this, and I noticed he had a mark like right here, and it was kind of like ocean blue, light blue, kind of the color of a shirt. Within 20 minutes, it went to black. And we saw it go from this color to darker blue to the color of my shirt to black within 20 minutes. And we were both watching it and like, that's the weirdest thing in the world. So he said, I think I need to go to the doctor. So he goes to the doctor, and they do a lot of different blood work. They call him a few days later. They say, so your basic blood work came back, you're good, you're fine. But we're still waiting for a few more results, and we'll call you when they come in. Well, they called him a few days later and said, and this is the way I interpret the conversation, because like we were talking about earlier, it's kind of Charlie Brown talk, or the Charlie Brown teacher talk. But how I interpreted it, it was like, get to the hospital now, but drive very carefully, because if you even cut yourself shaving, you'll bleed out in a few minutes. So they were like, just be careful, pack for a few days, and that was it. And then, so the next 6 weeks, Josh was in Medical City, Dallas, and we live in Denton, so it was quite a hike every day. But anything you want to add?
So for me, what she was talking about is I had some bruising that had popped up once, first initially, actually also on my shoulder, and I thought roughhousing with the kids, maybe that's where it occurred. Well, as she had identified, the next one was on my forearm. It was much larger, probably about half the size of a softball, very dark and purple. And when I went to the oncologist, said this wasn't right. He said, let's just do some blood tests. He said, we'll put you on steroids. We'll send you out. I think that'll take care of it. It definitely isn't the cancer ward. And I said, okay. And so a couple days later, July 2nd, he calls me. He said, you drew the unlucky card. By that, he said APL leukemia is highly curable, but it's very fast acting, so you have no choice but to go to the hospital. At that time, to what she was alluding to, my platelet count was 16,000. So had I had an accident, an injury, fallen off the ladder, whatever, it would have probably been internal bleeding, and I would have possibly passed away. But we were admitted to the hospital July 2nd. From there, it was a 41-day induction phase, 5 days initial chemo treatment with 35 days of arsenic. I had always seen arsenic in Netflix documentaries. I said, this is the way it's going to go. But it was after that 41 days, I had a 30-day break, and then I would be on cycle every other month, every cycle being 28 days, and all the way through March of 25. And then that was when I was cleared. So as of now, almost about 1 year in remission after the arsenic treatment. So.
Wow. What a journey with you, Shannon, finding out, hearing the C word, the cancer word first, and then later hearing about Josh. So what impact has that had on your family?
I think for us, it was just the initial impact, the stress. The hardest thing, I think, for me is there was no chance to go home and pack, really. I mean, we threw a jump bag together, but it wasn't a whole lot of goodbyes and spending a couple nights before we made the transition. I had to go immediately to the hospital. So for me, for 41 days, I didn't get to see my kids really other than FaceTime. There was a brief moment, an order was written to allow me to see those kids, or to see her kids, but like I said, it was a different experience. They had to see me with a mask. I had an IV cart with me, and so it was it was just very tough. And coming home, that normalization, if you will, every time I came home from treatment, being younger kids, being involved in daycare, She had to give him a bath or a shower before I could ever touch him, especially while I was active on treatment. And so that was tough. It changed the way I interacted with the kids. It sort of changed the way the kids interacted with me because I was usually wearing a mask. So and then for me, it just left me with no energy. By the end of 4 weeks chemo treatment, I'd usually gained 15 to 20 pounds of water weight. I was fatigued. I was exhausted. So I didn't really have a lot of input or energy to give back to the family. So a lot of that burden fell on Shannon at that point. So, but it was through her, and we talk about the support system from my perspective, the firefighters stepping up, my department stepping up, a lot of that support that really stepped in when I couldn't at that point. So.
Yeah, I think we both drew the unlucky, how did you say it? Unlucky lucky card.
Yeah.
Because my type of cancer, 2 surgeries and a pill, it was easy. And then I got to go back to work, and then, my second job as mom. So mine was pretty easy. And then his was a little bit more, extensive. But we did have a lot of support. There was a comment made earlier that, maybe I shouldn't have gone back to work that soon. I noticed that. I went back to work immediately, and I was like, wait, it really hurts. Like, I need a few more days off. And I do a lot of, speaking in my roles. So it was very hard constantly clearing my throat. And, I don't know, but like being a female and having a big scar across my throat, it took a lot of time to get used to that. But at the end of the day, it was a very easy surgery. I think my surgery was only like 15 minutes. They were in and out. They were quick. But yeah, and I think the kids being so young, they didn't really notice anything. It was fresh out of COVID, so masks were still kind of like a cool thing. And so it wasn't that big of a deal.
Well, we think about, and Josh, you had mentioned talking about how important your fire department family was during this time. And so what were some other things that helped you all to cope with this?
So I'm going to take this one.
Okay.
Because there were 2 things that stood out to me. Our church just didn't even question. They just stepped up and they said, we're going to do it whether you want to or not. But one thing that really stood out, we've only been married for about 4 years, so I'm not as familiar as, with the brotherhood of firefighters and law enforcement. And I remember one guy, Jesse, called me and he was like, what do you need? I'm like, no, we're good. We don't need anything. And every day I got a work accommodation to work from the hospital so I could see him because I couldn't bring the kids, to the hospital. And the only time to see Josh for those 6 weeks was during working hours. So I was like, hey, let me work from the hospital. I'll still work. We're good. And then I remember Jesse called me and he asked, what do you need? And of course, my stubbornness, I said, no, we're good. I got this. And then he was like, well, Shannon, I'm coming over to mow your lawn, whether you like it or not, every week. But if you could give me like a date that would be nice for you, like that would help you. And he was like, I'm going to be there. We're all going to be there. That was something that stuck out. And somebody at our church also said, how did she say it? Like, don't take away our gift of giving. And she said, we want to give and don't prevent us. Like, pretty much we're going to do it whether you like it or not. So they started a meal train for us. And again, my stubbornness, I was like, we don't need the charity. We're good. We got this. But being able to not worry about dinners and, having to drive an hour every day to see Josh still work and then pick up the kids on the way home and just not having to worry about dinner, that was huge. And it really was a lift off my shoulders.
So you're finally able to say yes.
Yeah, it did teach me. And I don't know if y'all are familiar with Mel Robbins, the let them theory. Like, let them help you. Let them think whatever they want. And anyway, you can take it a lot of different directions, but it was very helpful.
So her words to you is basically, don't deny us the blessing of helping you. Yeah, and so that has really resonated.
Absolutely.
Yes. So Josh, how about you? How have, because sometimes when we're in the fire service and we're diagnosed with cancer, we hear that word and it's like, it becomes almost a threat to our identity because we're just accustomed to being in control of ourselves and control of others and situations. And then when we start to feel kind of that sense of powerlessness. How were you able to cope?
I think for me, the big piece was the peer-to-peer. In fact, that's sort of how I came across University of Miami. Is the peer-to-peer connection for me was so strong. When I was in the hospital, probably about a week in, and I had some lucidity and was able to see things coming through some of the treatment. I had firefighters that I hadn't even yet connected with that were connecting me with other firefighters. Garrett was one of them, who you'll hear from shortly, but it was those firefighters reaching out to me and sharing their journey, not on a medical level that I was hearing so much from the doctors, but just that peer-to-peer. I've been through this, and with my journey on this type of cancer, I've done this, and I think some of those similarities are just that outreach from the brotherhood and sisterhood of the fire service and public service as a whole was really impactful. And when I came sort of through my treatment and I was on LinkedIn, I had seen the study that University of Miami was doing for like peer-to-peer, and I had reached out to Chelsea at that time because to me it was such a strong element of, I think, my support system in getting through this this cancer that it moved me in ways that I hadn't understood until that moment. And coming through that 41 days, people asked me, like, why do you seem so positive? And I said it was that support system. It was those firefighters and everyone that had reached out. It was my department knowing that, I had burned up all my medical time, my sick time, everything was burned up, and the department continued to stay behind me, provided that support, gave me that peace of mind so I could focus on my healing and still be able to provide for the family, because I think that was the hardest thing, is having all that ability of being able to provide for others and helping others stripped away from you, and just now you're relying, like she said, on that support from so many more, and it's a guilty feeling, but it was something I had to sort of accept, and then working through the cancer itself. So.
Okay, you all are obviously very resilient, and what a wonderful couple to continue to support each other and to be there. And so if there's like a final word or something that you would like to share with the group, what would that be?
I think for me, definitely just take care of each other, reach out to them. Like I said, I can't tell you how important it was for me to not only have that peer-to-peer support and the support of the department, but just having those words, having those laughters, having those moments that I think reconnected me to some kind of humanity that was out there. Because for 41 days, I looked inside of Medical City Dallas, and all I saw was sterile walls and doctors and nurses, and they were constantly coming in and out. So, reach out. I think it was mentioned earlier today, those text messages. I wasn't always in the mood to have a phone conversation. Sometimes I was definitely irritable and cranky and whatever else. But just that text, that when I had those moments in between treatments, it sort of brought a smile and made a joke or whatever the case may be. But just be there for everybody else. That's by far the biggest thing, and take care of yourself. I thought I was impervious to ever catching cancer, despite my wife having it. Maybe it's a firefighter mentality or weakness, but I thought it was never going to happen to me. And here I was, going through my journey. So,
thank you so much, and I love that reconnecting with humanity. And it is about that peer support, the love from from your family, but also the love from your fire family.
Absolutely.
And being there and checking on each other, and being able to accept the help that people offer. So thank you all so very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate you. All right, now I would like to invite Samantha and Garrett Ellis. Well, good afternoon. I'm so glad that you were able to get away from the hospital and be with us.
Me too. Here you go.
I'm truly blessed that I get to work with Sam at Cook Children's in the emergency department.
Yes.
So thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule at the hospital. It's been quite busy.
Yes.
And Garrett, for you, been taking time away from Waco Fire Department. So will y'all go ahead and please introduce yourselves?
My name is Garrett Ellis. I work for the Waco Fire Department. Been there 19 years. Was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia in 2023. Went through a stem cell transplant, and in May I'll be 3 years post-transplant and been in remission ever since.
And my name is Samantha Ellis. I am a nurse. I work in the emergency room, and I'm a nurse manager, and I've been a nurse for about 20 years. So, and I'm married to this guy.
And how many years have you all been married?
Be 20 years in May.
20 years. Oh, my goodness.
High school sweethearts.
Oh, that's great. And you have children.
2 children. I have a daughter who's 16. Our son's about to be 14. Both involved in sports and all those things.
Okay. Garrett, tell us a little bit about, what your symptoms were, or, Josh talked about that he had the bruises. So what was the indication for you that something wasn't right?
So the very first indication I have, which I just didn't think about it, every year we do the physicals, and I did my blood work that year. I went and talked to the doctor, and my platelets were a little bit low, and my white blood cell count was a little bit low, but only by like 3 or 4 points. So again, I was like, no big deal. I'll go get it checked out whenever. So that was probably October of 22. By December, kind of the same symptoms Josh was talking about. I had bruises on my legs that, like I said, there's no way you don't know how you got these bruises. And everybody's asking me, like, where those bruises come from? Like, I have no idea. So that was probably the first main side of that, and like severe fatigue. I remember we were working out at the station with our crew, and it's a workout we do all the time, and I was just struggling. I couldn't get through it, to the point where one of my guys was like, I was about to call your wife and say, hey, he needs to go home, because I was struggling pretty bad. Made it through, but finally went and did some blood work in January. And the next day, I went to my primary care. The next day, they called me and said, you need to get to the emergency room immediately. I can't remember what my numbers were then, but
They were bad. Bad nurse talk.
Josh said,
They were pretty bad.
if I had fallen, I probably would have bled to death internally.
So certainly a similar story to Josh, that with the bruising, and then that it was so important that you get there immediately. So Sam, what was your first thought when you heard the symptoms?
So, being a nurse, I had the mentality of like, that's not going to happen. He was 38, the cancer, leukemia, whatever, that's not happening. The bruises, it's like I knew, but I didn't, it never really set like that's what was happening, that he had cancer, like he's young. I was in denial, right? I was at work, and I knew that I just knew his blood work was going to be bad, and I just didn't want to accept it. And I have that guilt because I felt like I should have made him go sooner. But he called me and he said it's bad, and your life just changes, right? And I knew our life would be changing for that year. And I met him at the emergency room, and it was a long day. It was a really long day. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a long day, and then they hospitalized him, and
Yes.
So what were some of the next steps?
So I went from the emergency room up to the cancer floor. We were at Baylor, and I started my induction chemo, which was a little like 33 days. I think I was in the hospital for that one. doctors reassured me because there's not a lot of information. She was looking up information online for leukemia, and when you look up, everything is like 65 years and older, so there's not a lot of information. So they reassured me, being younger and fairly healthy other than the leukemia, that everything should work out good. So I had a lot of positive support from my doctors immediately. But spent 30 days or so in the hospital. They let me out, but I was still neutropenic, I guess, at the time. Was out for about a week and got an infection. Had to immediately go back to the hospital for antibiotics and stuff like that. So he told me then, we did a bone marrow biopsy, and he said it's going to require stem cell transplant. That's, I guess they rate it in 3 different categories for leukemia, and I came up on the high risk category, which the only treatment option is stem cell transplant. And that was the route we took after that. So I had a couple more stays in the hospital for chemo up until the transplant, and then got that scheduled in May of 2023.
I just want to say, I think it was by divine intervention, I know Cameron, because we had conversations about cancer research and everything that was going on with this conference. And it's funny that we had that conversation. And I am so happy that I got him into UT Southwestern. That is where it was just divine intervention, because he was one of the first allo transplants with the doctor that I found, and he was the first patient that they did in Dallas back to allo transplant. So at UT Southwestern. So it was just one of those God things.
Yeah, and then got in with that doctor, and they got me started. Fortunately, we were able to find a donor pretty quickly, and it was what they said was a high-level donor, so younger, matched all the way through. And everybody, when you say stem cell transplant or bone marrow transplant, I got a lot of questions at work about it. I was like, well, I really just laid there. It's kind of like just getting blood, It's not like a super painful process or anything, but went pretty smoothly, the transplant. It did. That took, 3 weeks? Because you got to condition up to it and then have the transplant, and then 2 weeks I was out of the hospital after that. And we had one setback about 2 weeks later. I had a liver condition due to the chemo I had to take, and spent another
Month.
25 days in the hospital then. And then they took care of that, and ever since then, everything's been good. I haven't had any problems since then.
Good. And so I'm going to ask you all the question too, about, how have you been able to cope, and what has helped you to be resilient throughout this journey?
It's like what Josh said. It's the day I got diagnosed. I called my battalion chief, and then I called a guy at the station, and then some family. And I mean, within the next 2 weeks or month, people are calling, asking what they can do. And like you said, I was always on the give. We have a relief program that we do at the fire department, and I've worked relief for guys, and I've always helped them do that stuff, but I've never been on the receiving end. And it was amazing the way people come together to help you out. And not just my department, and she works at Cook, so she has a lot of connections with other departments, and just guys from other departments calling me to come and help, and it was really neat.
Yeah. We're just lucky that he works in Waco, and they were amazing. I had guys calling me I never talked to before, and my work especially, we just had a really great support system. And then our families too helped a lot with the kids, and I think that was the hardest part they mentioned, is just being away from the kids. It was rough, but you just live in the present, I guess.
Yeah. living in the present, living each day and valuing that time together and the social support system, and from your work and as well as your Waco Fire Department, that fire family to be there to support you. So do y'all have any last words that you would like to say to the group?
Yeah, I would just say, like I said, the very first signs I got was that blood work, and even though it was just a minor, blood work was off just a little bit, I would say if you have anything going on that's abnormal, to just go to your primary care and say, hey, look, is this something or is it nothing? And most of the time it's probably going to be nothing, but it could be that early detection that you need to get past this cancer, and that's the biggest thing. So I would just say any abnormality you find, I would go get it looked at.
From a spouse's perspective.
I know there are firemen in the room, and if you're married, go to the doctor. It is so important, because he did not have a primary care physician. He was talking about that. So get established somewhere, and it's so important to get blood work done for yourself and for your family. So,
All right. Well, thank you all very much. That was something.
Sorry.
Thank you all so much. Okay, now I would like to invite Jana and Troy Clark. You can dance across the stage, whatever. This is your stage, Janice. I'm fine. Thank you. Okay, to see you too. Okay, all right. So thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. And I know with what busy schedules you all have, and then with two little sons, then would like for us to start and you all to introduce yourselves.
I'm Jana Clark. I'm Troy's wife. We have two little boys, 4 and 6. I'm an elementary principal. Yes.
I'm Troy Clark. I've worked here in Fort Worth for 28 years now. And yes, we have a 4 and 6 year old, and that's our whole life. Our house is a total wreck. Yes, I was diagnosed with some prostate cancer at 40 and had a 70-year-old disease, just at 40. That's where my journey began. And that was 8 years ago now.
So we talked, throughout today, they've talked about early detection and the importance of it, with it being stage 1 versus stage 4 cancer. So tell us a little bit about how yours was detected.
Mine was a fluke. We have our annual physicals here, and they didn't require us to get PSA testing until we were 45, and I was 40. You're only as good as your primary care doctor, but you hope he's a good one, because mine never got it. Mine didn't tell me as well. They didn't do PSA on me. I was too young, and I wish I would have known a few years earlier. It'd have been a lot easier.
Yeah. So, Troy, what was your first thought when the doctor called you or you were contacted and they told you that you had prostate cancer?
I was really shocked because I was invincible back then, kind of Superman-like. But no, I worked out. Like, I never felt bad. It was a blood test that came back that said that, and then a biopsy, and it was hard to believe. It was really hard to believe.
Yeah, kind of in that state of shock and disbelief that you had received that word with you. Again, you were in such excellent physical condition and so young and so vibrant, and just that. So kind of, Jana, what has been your journey with Troy?
Yeah, I think it's he talked about being Superman prior to the diagnosis, thought he was Superman, but really he has been great throughout the entire journey. It's been long, and it just when you think it's over, it can come back, and then you fight that battle as well. But he's been wonderful throughout every step, just strong through every step. So my caregiver title has been pretty easy, just spoiling them along.
So you're Superwoman, right? Married to Superman.
No.
So, Troy, can you tell us a little bit about your treatment plan, the initial plan, and how that's kind of evolved?
Sure. So I first go in and I have surgery after they detected it, and my PSA was 26 when it's supposed to be 1 to 4. But they do surgery, and UT Southwest, one of the good ones, and he said, "Oh, I'll see you back for radiation. You'll be back maybe next year, maybe in 10 years, but you'll be back." Why do you say that? Well, we biopsied it, and yes, you have a 70-year-old disease, but it's about 5 times worse. And they immediately staged it as a 3A is what he told me. So a year later, my PSA pops back up, and they recommended radiation, and I didn't do it. My father was a fireman here for 30 years, and he had cancer 3 different times. I watched the chemo radiation thing all 3 times. And so I wanted to do something different than my dad did. And I thought, well, here we go. It's me and my dad. As much as I want to be my dad, I was like, I didn't want that part of him. And even after genetic testing, I had 0 cancer genes. So that was kind of going back to the firefighter thing. So Jan and I were together at that time while she picked a guy that previously had cancer. I don't know why, but we talked to some friends of ours, and I ended up going to, brace yourself, Tijuana, Mexico for all natural treatment. And I did that for 5 years, and it held off radiation. It maintained what I had to a level of just feeling good. I took a lot of pills and vitamins every day. I still worked out. I felt so normal doing that. And I got workers' comp to pay for it somehow. That was a huge part of why I was able to do that. And they stopped paying for it a couple of years ago, and my PSA started coming back, so I had to do radiation last year. So it's been 1 year. I've been cancer-free.
Yay. You are such a trooper, and I was so blessed to know your dad. And I think about him often and how proud he would be of you, Troy, and of your sons, to have those grandsons to play with. And I know that was heart-wrenching when he was diagnosed with melanoma, the skin melanoma first, and then later it was lymphoma, right? Just how the fire department surrounded him and tried to help him through that time. And so what has helped you to cope? What has been your all support system throughout this?
Each other. I quit drinking alcohol, unlike most firefighters. So we went on a coffee craze, and I learned how to learn what water to drink in Mexico. They have some weird stuff like, we're going to teach you how to drink water, we're going to teach you how to eat, and we're going to look at your cancer. So we've just been with that whole, it's a lifestyle change, if you will. And that was really settling, knowing that we're doing that together. And once we had kids, we're going to bring our kids into that lifestyle, which was a different lifestyle that we had growing up. That's been very settling, and I like that. And she likes it too, for some reason. So we get there. We get there together.
Okay.
That was good. Yeah, I think the boys just kept him through the radiation. He didn't get lazy. He wasn't I didn't allow him to get, the boys didn't allow him to get lazy. He would go do radiation and come home and wrestle and do all the things, do the bath time and go to the grocery store. He's really good at the grocery store. Cook dinner and all those things. So I think that's just having that positive outlook and the mindset of, hey, this is just what you have to do in order to get to the other side. And I think that positive mindset, of course, in each other, having that support system, and the boys to keep you young.
Absolutely. Something to give you to look forward to. And I bet they just have a blast with you. And what a wonderful couple you all are. And just the connection, how you all are just so well connected, and that adopting that healthy lifestyle, and that it has something that you have continued for years, and that you're passing that on to your sons too. So has the fire department been supportive throughout this?
Absolutely. When I was first diagnosed, I was single back then. I lived in town. I had a little yard. I had a little house. And I didn't need any help. Now I've got 2 acres. Where's everybody at now? I need 2 acres. But yeah, it's always great.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. And you have family here as well, and so family and that support system. And then Josh had talked earlier about just that reconnecting with humanity. And because I think that so often when a person is going through the treatment and also with their significant other, that caregiver, that they feel isolated, and that just being able to have those relationships, and sometimes it's reestablishing them, and sometimes maintaining them and nurturing them. So, okay. Do you all have any final words that you all would like to say to our wonderful audience?
I'm going to go first so he doesn't steal mine.
Oh, okay.
I think it's very important to make time for your wellness before you're forced to take time for your illness. That's one thing that we've really learned through this journey, is really take time for your wellness, because if not, you'll be forced to take time for your illness, and we'd rather spend that time taking time for your wellness.
Very wise words.
Yes. Having a good doctor, your primary is vital. Second opinions are vital. Make sure you or your guys, there's probably some chiefs in there, make sure your guys know that they need a physician who understands they're a firefighter, and to understand the extra risks that go above and beyond just the normal of your low numbers or your high numbers. They'll be okay. Your position makes such a difference. And as firefighters, we have these exposures. We have the sleep disorders are all around. We have the binge drinking that's all around. We eat for quantity at the station, not quality normally. And the stress, the mental stress that we have going on, I just urge those guys, or you guys as chiefs, to change, not all of those. It's probably impossible. I didn't change them all myself, but to try to make something better. Like, you have to start somewhere. If it's sleep, if it's your diet, I just don't know. You keep doing the same thing, and it's inevitable what's going to happen.
So it sounds like that it's so very important to be an advocate for yourself, and that you have to be persistent in talking with the physician. I think with Josh as well as with Garrett, that persistence certainly paid off, and all of you all are in remission, thanks be to God. So I appreciate you all being here today, and would love to see more pictures of those little boys, and that I know you all are a blessing to all of us, all 3 couples you are. So thank you so much, because it's like Brene Brown says, we have to have the courage to be vulnerable. And I think that with you getting up here today, that you all showed extreme courage. And extreme courage going through what you all have been through. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.